Okay.
Hi everyone, welcome to another Wolfram Language Design Review, part of our Language Completeness and Consistency series. And looks like we have a few assorted topics for today. I'm surprised we don't have more, but anyway, let's get started here. We may not be able to do this one because our key person is without power somewhere in Montana. Is it worth looking at this or is it
Yeah,
not worth
I
looking
think we can get started on this, right? So, we may get lost in some of the details, but right. So interpolating functions have these undocumented method things, which um, the question is how to expose them, or that is
Why isn't it
one.
an information play?
What's that?
Well, use the information function.
Yes. Which is well, yes and no. Because some of these are um, they take right, they take parameters and information isn't really set up for that.
Is it not?
Um, and
I
so
mean,
for
look, this
so,
stuff
so,
was
so some
introduced,
of
these
these are
string arguments.
some of these are actual operations. So
Okay,
like
these string arguments to interpolating function were introduced as a kind of rogue project years ago. I never really believed in them. I always thought they would bite us. And guess what? They're biting us. So, what we've done in other functions is to break this stuff out into the information thing. And if
that's well, that's not the entirety of the story. I mean, I know you like to opine, but maybe if you actually pay attention,
listen,
you can
go
learn
ahead,
something.
please go ahead.
Um, right? So for example, if you look at the um, at the vector evaluate thing, right? These
Yep.
are right. And we used the sort of funny string applied to argument thing because interpolating function is a is has listable evaluation. Um, right. So it, on some level, what we've done with data structure is sort of, serves as a good model.
Well, I don't
Um,
like it very much. I mean, it was the best of a bad collection, what we did with data structure.
okay. Um, and
So
yeah,
what's the point is we have operations on interpolating functions
yep,
and we sort of rogue them into these string arguments.
yep,
Now maybe there are actual proper official functions that operate on interpolating functions, just like things operate on sparse arrays or lots of other kinds of things. I don't really know. And there's some things that are more like properties, which are more like information plays. And there's some things that maybe should be actual functions operating on interpolating functions. Sandra on our live stream comments asks about extrapolation order, extrapolation handler. It's common that you just want the value of the first and last point rather than a crazy continuation of third order. Not quite
uh,
sure what that means because I mean, if it's the first and last point that are actually in the data, why aren't you picking them out of the data?
He may be referring to extrapolation order 0, so that you can evaluate the function freely at points outside the domain and you still get those points.
You mean
as it
interpolating function?
Yes. So in the same way that we have an interpolation order, he may be requesting an extrapolation order.
right. So right, if you evaluated that function at 5, that
Mhm.
it would get. I mean, I'm not sure
You just give an arrow. That's it.
how you would do that in 2 dimensions. Like if you had a one-dimensional interpolating function between 1 and 4 and you evaluate it at 5, that would still give you the same output as you would have gotten at 4.
Well,
Really?
we can still extrapolate into dimensions, right? And
Yeah,
I
but
don't remember which order we are using.
okay, so if I do this and I say that of 11, yeah, it just says it's outside the range. But then it says it gives
Yes,
an error message,
but
and then does
but
it anyway.
but it gives a value. I think he's requesting that we have a way to control that value. In this case, he might want 10. If we had extrapolation order goes to 0, it would return 10.
I understand, but the other question is, should we have a function called extrapolation that can take an interpolating function, for example, and extrapolate it without giving error messages and so on? I mean, I think it's right to have an error message there. I think otherwise one just gets stupid wrong answers.
Yes. Perhaps if we had an extrapolation order, that would indicate that you are interested in extrapolation, and then we do whatever that order says and not emit a message.
But we could also have an extrapolation that can be applied in addition to interpolation. We could have this, which immediately, does, create something that is extrapolatable. I mean, I do agree that it's a somewhat common operation.
Right. Although, any, my experience has been if you have for any sort of real data, I mean, right, that thing tends to diverge very quickly.
Yeah.
I think that
But
time series has some control on this.
let's look at these things here.
Yep.
Which ones so there are a bunch of these that would be reasonable information type things. And there are some that are not. Which ones are not? Which ones are more like computation?
I think well, the ones that are called that have evaluate in the name, obviously.
What is
And
evaluate? Is evaluate not just the default operation of interpolating function?
that is basically just the default operation.
Okay. What's that one?
That one I am not sure about.
Okay. Okay, but many of these are really information style things.
Yes. And which is if had we gone on to, the rest of the agenda, you would have seen that, what should information give?
Okay, fine.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand. Why not just give everything an information and have it work like information does for other functions, where you can call out particular pieces of information if you want them?
yeah. Right.
Okay. I do agree that kind of, just like the duration operation for things like time series, right? That's a useful function. What is the analog of duration for giving the interval of a time series? Or do we not have that? But look, my feeling is what we should do, and probably we need to come back with Rob here, is figure out which things are information things, and figure out 2 or 3 probably new functions that are applied to interpolating functions that do the things that are actual computational operations. Make sense? That's my suggestion for where to go next. Disagreement? Okay. All right, let's move on then.
Okay, so this is something very simple. It's the idea in the same way that we have select and cases, and then we have any true, all true, none true, which are aligned to select. These would be aligned to cases.
How are all true, any true, and untrue aligned to select?
Because they take a function, a criterion function, like select as. So these would be taking a pattern.
I would say that they're more analogous to and right? I mean,
Well,
they
or union. I'm okay. What
right?
is the
I mean,
need? Go ahead.
those right, right. Those are predicates. So I will start over, and because I disagree with that characterization. Right, we have any true, all true, and none true, and which are sort of predicates that tell us, apply some sort of test function. Um, and they're guaranteed to short circuit, et cetera, et cetera. Um,
Okay, so I mean, if we say something like this, oops, wait a minute. Any true?
No, I think you want the list of table of 10, so range 10, comma prime q.
yeah.
So now you could use all true, and then it would give false, because not all numbers are.
Right.
So the idea is to have the equivalent triple, but the second argument is a pattern rather than a criterion function.
Right. And right. So, any match is basically, just member queue.
Yeah.
And so all match and unmatch are sort of variation variations thereof, which I've written up there.
But so, I mean, for example, this.
Right. That would be another way to write
Exactly.
any match.
Yes. So in a sense, this comes from the fact that according to Rob, doing select is faster in manipulating large arrays. And therefore, if we have a predicate that can analyze quickly rows, it would be good. And so this is a way with the operator form of saving a few characters. So instead of any true of match q something, it would be any match of something. It's just that. It's syntactic sugar for what you have in the screen.
I understand. How common is this?
Well, for arrays in which all columns have the same type of object, like all are numbers, imagine that you want to select all rows in which everything is a rational number. Say, I'm just inventing something right now.
Yeah. I'm not convinced this is that common an operation. Yesterday we had a little thing about keep elements.
Yep.
Right. And none of us could really remember. I couldn't remember I couldn't even remember that we had a function called keep elements.
Delete elements, yeah.
Keep elements is the one we wanted to add. The delete elements.
Okay, fine. Delete elements.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think these things that are not. Yeah, I mean, I find myself using any true and all true and so on. But I use those with some frequency.
Yes.
Would one use these?
So yes, and in fact, recently Rob has improved their efficiency quite a lot in that triple. So this was the idea of doing the same thing, but for patterns rather than criterion functions. And again, we can survive clearly with any match queue of something, but this saves. It's syntactic, sure.
I'm just trying to think. Maybe I'm just not thinking straight, but I'm not thinking of. I'm trying to think of code where I would have used this.
So it would be like
Well, I think
data.
any match is the wrong one because that's just member queue. And surely you use member queue.
Yeah, right. Even though
Yeah,
I
But
can
I
never remember its
think I
argument
could be
order.
wrong, but I think that member queue is going to unpack and any match would not.
Well,
and
that's just
it's
a
not
bug in a
obvious
member
that
queue.
member queue takes patterns. So I bet that most users didn't know that member queue takes patterns. It feels like a very literal oriented function.
Yeah, but okay, but that's we can't have a new function just because people don't know what the name means.
That's fine. I agree. It's more for the other two, and yeah, and then to complete the triple.
I mean, for something like all match, I'm certain I've written code that was essentially that would have come down to all match of something comma underscore list. To make sure
Yeah,
that I have like a list of lists of.
all right, I'm agreeing. I agree that's useful, and I'm thinking of code I've written. I've written plenty of code which has apply and to a bunch of things.
I think this is something that we would write with cases, blank, 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 the pattern, blank, 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 this sort of thing. But this is much more readable.
All right. Okay, let's do it.
And you think it's superior to basically duplicate member queue as opposed to coming up with names for all match and none match.
Yes, I think that duplicating member queue is. I mean, I don't know whether the operator form is any different.
Now, the operator form, the difference would be that you can only use, a single level as opposed to multiple levels. Although, I think the number of times that I've used member queue with more than one level is, can probably be counted on one hand.
I've used it in arrays and things.
Well, you've used it on arrays, but have you used it at multiple levels of the array?
I've used it at a particular level of the array.
Exactly, which you can also do with these guys.
I see.
But you can't do it at multiple levels. But as I was saying, I think the number of times where I've done it at multiple levels can probably
at the same
be counted
time.
on
Yeah,
one
right.
hand.
Because usually, I see, at that specified level. I think it's okay. I think any match is okay. I think it's a little bit weird that it's essentially a synonym for member queue. And
I'm trying to think of similar cases. I think, for example, we introduced contains all, even though it's essentially equivalent to subset queue.
yes,
For same reason, to have that member of the full family, of the contains family.
all right, let's do it. Moving on. Oh boy.
So this is a suggestion which Nick, can you tell us, was this a WFR or where did this come from?
Yeah, there was a WFR that is at least somewhat popular for nega binary digits. So that's integer digits to base -2. But there is a general form where you can get integer digits in any integer base that's negative and it's deterministic. And so rather than obviously having a spin-off function that's just integer digits in negative space.
Sure. But here's my question. There's a unique way to represent, there's a unique sequence of digits that represents any positive integer.
Right.
For a given base. What's the statement about negative bases? Because for Fibonacci base, for example, there isn't a unique sequence of integers that represent a unique sequence of digits. Right? In other words,
For what there isn't?
for for a golden ratio base,
I see.
right? There is a canonical version of that, which I think we have. I mean, if I say real digits of pi, comma 5, comma golden ratio. Is that the other way around? I was sure we had this. Oh, base B, sorry. Yeah, there we go. Okay, there is not a canonical version of this. I mean, this is one of the possible sequences of digits in golden ratio base that reproduces pi. Am I making sense?
Yes.
I think at least for integers, I think this is, I think this is unique.
Yeah.
The reason I'm not so thrilled about this is, right, well, if we add it to integer digits, then, there's like at least 8 other functions that we would need to add it
Yeah,
to.
digit count and all that kind of stuff.
And I'm not sure that this really I mean, this sounds like a great WFR. I'm not sure that it,
Well, I think in a perfect world, we would add this to the system. Why not? I'm not sure it's our highest priority thing to do, to put it mildly.
Mhm.
I think it is desirable, but not high priority, is my point of view. But I
Okay.
still want to know about uniqueness.
I'm quickly reading about it. Apparently, the main advantage is that you can represent both positive and negative numbers without the minus sign.
Yeah, right.
Right.
But
As
the
demonstrated by my little table here.
but the complication of operations is very large. It seems to be unique. Yes.
Okay, but for example, here we're just dropping the minus sign. So if this was in base -2, which it should presumably be up here.
Right. So if you look at -5 through -1, I have the nega binary there. And so you see, right, you get 2 digits at a time, right? Because you need to get back to the other side. Right. So you go from 0 to 1 1 to 1 0. Right, because the
Yeah.
even slots are negative and the even
Yeah, the even powers are positive and the odd powers are negative.
right.
But so what you're saying is that if I say from digits of this thing here, comma, -2, I get -65. What do you know?
Hmm.
What's that? What do you mean, huh?
I didn't know that worked.
Why wouldn't that work?
Yeah, you can put an X there.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay. Guess I never tried it with anything other than um you know.
Right. Okay, so fine. So then, okay, I'm taking it that this is unique. Therefore, my comment is, this would be desirable, but I can't say that it's very urgent. And I would say putting it into integer digits and then leaving it not in the other functions for the time being would be an okay solution. I mean, it would be nice to have it in everything, but I would say this is a low priority operation.
Okay.
I don't know if it's possible to have it so that it just calls the top level code in the case where there's a negative number there. Might make it easier to deal with this. Also, we might be able to compile that top level code.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? I think my statement would be we should have this. If it's easy to do, we should do it. If it isn't easy to do, we could, for example, have it be top level for a while. It will be a good example of something which should be compilable.
Okay. Right. So
Oh boy. Yeah, go ahead.
right. So right. So This has to do with, position largest and smallest, and I guess also take largest and smallest with association. So, position largest does this sort of funky thing where if you ask for one, it gives you the index, and position largest only works at level one. Just like take largest only works at level one.
Yes.
And so, if you ask for one, it gives you an index. If you ask for multiple, it gives you, well, I guess it's actually giving you a position in each case. It's just giving you a singleton position versus a
List of positions.
list of positions. Right. But then if you, if you do that for
I don't
a,
understand why those positions are wrapped in lists if it only works at level one.
well, then there would need to be no list in the singleton case either. Right.
I understand, but I don't understand why there's a sublist. Yes, I agree. I don't understand why position largest works this way at all.
This was a very long conversation and of whose entire details I can't recall. But it had,
Oh, that's right. That's right. It's like communist. The problem is that there can be a tie. That's the problem.
right. Yeah, so if we do if we change to 15 to 20,
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So now what's the question here? So
right.
you're saying if we say position largest of the association, A goes to 10, B goes to 15. Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, this was partially
It's
motivated
weird.
out of I had an example where I have an association where I have
Right.
a bunch
So
of keys and values, and I want to figure out
yeah,
what is
so
the
so that
key.
is, the example right after the next bullet point, right? So if you compare position largest of the masses here with position of foo comma max, then yeah, we don't support that. We support that in take largest, where you'd also need um, a second argument.
So if I said here, I'm confused. Why isn't this, what the heck? What is index there?
So index is the position, right? It's just that we didn't want to call it position to avoid that list you were referring to before.
Okay, but I don't understand what this. Oh, index is, I see the 2 there is the index.
Right.
Yep.
So what are the keys doing here?
Well, I guess the decision was made to preserve the structure, to preserve the head, right? Like just as take preserves the
Okay.
head.
Yes, and it's reversed because it's in decreasing order.
Yeah, okay. But so the idea would be that position largest, if I said position largest here, arrow key, that would return B or list
No,
B.
well, that's not my suggestion. My suggestion is that position largest right now is just plain wrong.
In what it does where?
So go down beneath the second bullet point and I'm comparing position largest to position, and I'm saying what position largest is doing is wrong.
I agree. Position gives the key object. And I think it's good for position largest to be consistent with position for
Okay,
associations.
so this here, I don't know what this was giving here.
It's giving basically what you would expect.
Okay, so now you say position of that comma max of that.
Right, which is the input right underneath.
Oh, sorry. So what are you saying? You're saying that position largest should give that as output, not the 5. I agree with you.
Yep. And then, then the question is, do we modify take largest? I mean, it would be weird if index was a key object. So then we could either, we could just live
Index
with it.
isn't a key. Index is essentially the position. We could say arrow key there, and it would return B, comma A up at line 131.
Right. And the question is, and then the question is, what would key give in the non-association case? Should it just be like not present, or I think it's better for it to be there with, missing of not applicable in the not association case.
Well, except that, remember, keys if we have a list of rules, keys just gives the left-hand side of the rules.
Right.
I don't know whether we think that keys should degenerate to a position spec. Probably not. I'd be perfectly happy with the missing not applicable.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and does take largest even understand the list of rules? Yeah, take largest doesn't even understand the list of rules. It has to be a list of values of or an association, in which case missing of not applicable is the correct thing if you ask for the key of the largest thing and you gave it a list.
Would it be too much to change index to give the key?
I think so. I think index sounds like a number.
Yeah, it should give the number, which you can still use in an association with a raw part number.
Yep. Or with extract.
Yes. All right. I think we got through our agenda.
Yeah, there's since I guess we only have two minutes, but if you will allow me, I wanted to sort of bring up one other thing. So if you open the help browser and go to ref/program/Wolfram. You need the ref in front of it.
Ref colon or ref slash?
Slash.
Okay.
Right. So you remember, well, you may or may not remember that when we, created these things about a decade ago, there was some discussion about, where examples go versus where all the options go. And, Alex Newman and I were like, well, we should list all the options before the examples. And you're like, no, we have to do examples first. And so, recently there was an email thread, and Joel was like, oh, I looked at the ref page for how to get license information so I can script whether, an activation
I'm
thing.
okay with putting the options first, if that's what you're going to ask.
Yep.
Now, I don't know whether we should try and do what we do.
Yay!
Well, the question, were you here for this whole time for that? No. I mean, look, maybe we should do the thing that we do on function pages of having that closed section at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's sort of the best of both worlds. There's a lot of detail here, and maybe these sections should be closed up by default. I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
these sections being closed with attractors. I don't know if I can edit this. Can I? Oh yeah, look at that. What do you know? If we close these and put little attractors here, I think this, and some don't even need attractors. That would seem pretty reasonable to me. We just didn't have the notion of closed sections with attractors at the time when we designed this.
Okay.
Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, that seems reasonable to me.
But I agree, the examples here are a lot less compelling than they are for a function.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Cool.
anything else?
That's it.
Let me ask this question. I mean, it feels like these agendas have been getting a little bit thin, but I feel like there's a ton of stuff we could be talking about. I mean, there's a ton of serious chestnuts that we have not been roasting for a long time. There are all kinds of, I don't know what, I mean, from things that I've been concerned with, things like the multi-mechanism to, ports and graphs, to all kinds of things like this. Another one that I really wanted to have, and it was Brett here? I don't recall.
Yes.
Okay. I want to have this graphics summit meeting where we talk about these things like spacing between graphics and graphics arrays and so on. Unless you think you solved that.
I mean, we've had several instances of that graphics summit, and
Right.
I don't.
So Brett, do you think you've solved that problem? In other words, am I going to get any stupid graphics grid spacings anymore?
Oh, probably still.
But you think you fixed one round of problems or not?
It's gone through a few rounds of tightening up, and like, when we beefed up absolute options, a few versions ago.
No, this was still happening within the last few months.
Yeah,
I don't know it in 14.0.
Well,
I have
this
not
is-
looked at it closely
Yeah.
recently.
I think
Well,
it
we
will
need
also be the case that our work on labeled graphics box will provide Brett with more and better tools.
Okay. When is that coming to closure?
I am hoping that we'll be able to deliver the box in this upcoming release, but I can't guarantee that it will be in time for Brett to make effective use of it, though, in that release.
Okay. Okay. Still, I guess I'm asking. Go ahead.
One backlog of things which Itai and I just talked about in the last week, actually, which I know you'd want to see here, is conflations of symbols that are used as option names and as function names.
Oh
And
gosh,
we have
those are horrifying.
we have a collection of, I don't know, maybe 15 or so of those that should be reviewed.
Yep. Okay. Well, I'm just saying, I mean, I'm just trying to understand, is there a giant pile of, backed up stuff here or what? Because it feels to me like there's a lot of stuff should be being discussed here that I haven't gone and categorized. But I'm kind of wondering where it is.
Well, I mean, the question is, have things advanced to the point where it's useful to have
Yeah.
another discussion? I feel like the ports thing was sort of spun off to other meetings, so I
Okay.
haven't, and that's something we could maybe revisit. And I think we have a few other things coming in, like equal bracket and whatnot, that will undoubtedly,
Yes. Well,
get
I'd love
time.
to see multi get some time.
What is multi? I do not know what
Like
multi is.
multi-sets or
No, this function called
Oh.
multi for doing multi-computation. Parallelism.
That
Well,
is
you're
not
gonna-
something that has ever been discussed in this meeting.
Maybe it was an ILD then.
yeah, I
Was
mean
it?
there was a multi-computation meeting series at one point, right?
There was, but I don't know what happened to it.
Okay, I can check on that offline.
Yeah, that's so maybe that's what happened, is that meeting series for some reason died.
Okay, yeah, I will see what's going on with that with Nick, and if we
Fine.
need to bring that through ILD,
Sounds
we can.
good.
If there's not a regular series.
All right. Very good. Thanks a lot, guys. See you later.
See ya.